Welcome to Islamic Life Coach School Podcast. Apply tools that you learn in this podcast and your life will be unrecognizably successful. Now your host, Dr. Kamal Akhtar.
Hello everyone. Peace and blessings be upon all of you. Today I'm coming to you with a very unique topic, and that has to do with the concept of Ghayra. Ghayra from Arabic translated as protective jealousy or fervent possessiveness. The root of the word being ghayr, ghayn, ya, ra, which relates to change or otherness, as in something being out of place and needing to be corrected. In an Islamic and Arabic context, Ghayra is a very nuanced and layered concept, and I'm going to describe everything to you and explain to you why it applies to your coaching. By definition, Ghayra is an intense emotional response that arises when something sacred, private, or exclusive to a person is exposed or threatened, and it relates especially to the matters of honor, modesty, relationships. So far, you might have heard of this word in the most commonly thought of way as it relates to men, associated with man's protective instinct over a female family member, especially in the context of modesty, honor, exclusivity. But what I'm going to explain to you in this podcast is how it expands far more than that and how it relates to you as a Muslim woman. There is a hadith where Prophet ﷺ said, "Do you feel ghayra or protective jealousy? I feel even more ghayra than you, and Allah has more ghayra than I," reported in Sahih al-Bukhari. Here, ghayra is described as a divine quality where Allah SWT feels ghayra when His limits are transgressed, particularly regarding immorality. So in this podcast, we're going to move really far away from the traditional regular understanding of the word ghayra, where it might have been just used to explain a man's actions, especially violent crimes against women like honor killings, when the man himself is the judge, jury, and the executioner, and the word ghayra is used to protect him when the whole action might have been just relating to the man's ego. What I'm going to describe to you is that this word has a very healthy meaning, especially when it comes to your well-being. And this topic came about in the most recent coaching session with one of my clients, and this was very helpful, so I decided to expand on it knowing that it will help you guys as well, inshallah. So the common translation of the word is protective jealousy, and of course it's applicable to both men and women, but for us it might differ in expression. This is a divine attribute when tied to justice and protecting sacred boundaries. But there is a shadow side to this, just like everything else, and that is that it becomes toxic when driven by ego, control, and fear, rather than love and dignity, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Righteous anger is another term that comes to my mind when I describe ghayra, understood as an emotional fire that you feel when your boundaries are crossed. This is not rage of control. This is fierce level of care. Righteous anger or ghayra is a divinely aligned emotional response to the violation of moral, spiritual, and relational boundaries, especially those that Allah SWT has sanctified. It is very important for me to point out that it is definitely not rooted in ego. It is not self-dependent. It is rooted in reverence. There is a level of anger, but it comes with clarity. This is your nervous system's alarm for sacredness. How ghayra that is based on ego and anger is different from righteous ghayra. When you're applying this heightened emotional response in the right way, it's rooted in the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, justice and dignity. Its purpose is to restore your sacred order. The emotion in the body is highly charged, but it feels clear, grounded, and protective. And the outcome is that it strengthens your boundaries and it protects your dignity. But when you're dealing with ego-based anger, by contrast, a few ways you can tell it apart is that it's based in insecurity, pride, and a fear of loss. The purpose here is to control and punish. The emotion that feels like in your body is reactive. It's very turbulent, dominating, controlling. And the outcome it creates is that it breaks the trust in a relationship and creates harm. Healthy ghayra and the shadow side and the toxic ghayra activate the sympathetic nervous system. But in healthy ghayra, you stay regulated by using your prefrontal cortex. Your higher faculties stay online. The part of the brain responsible for insight, moral judgment, and long-term vision. That part stays in control. But if you're acting with ego-driven ghayra, the prefrontal cortex goes offline and you lose control. The righteous anger in Ghayra is anger from presence, patience, and precision. Imagine this like a fireplace. When it burns in its proper place, it warms you and it warms the home and it provides comfort. But when left unchecked, it sets everything on fire. But if you deny this level of Ghayra entirely, the house stays cold and unsafe. So I want you guys to anchor yourself in these definitions. This is what's going to create a distinction. This is going to be your diagnostic tool because the outcome of Ghayra will determine if you're using it righteously or not. And we have a very specific system in my Soulful Intelligence program inside the EMW coaching where we work exactly with these definitions. So if you're not used to feeling Ghayra or the righteous anger, it might feel like an intense alertness in the beginning, something that you might not even be able to contain in the beginning, especially if you're not used to feeling these levels of emotions. When Muslim girls grow up to be women who were never taught to stay with it, you were always taught don't overreact, don't embarrass anyone, don't be loud, be patient, be quiet. So when this level of righteous anger arises, you don't have the mental machinery to contain it, to recognize it. You don't know how to deal with it. So instead, you shame it, you shrink it, you suppress it, you pretend that it's not present. And sometimes this level of suppression acts out as physical symptoms like bodily aches and pains. Or sometimes it presents itself as outbursts weeks later where you feel out of character. When you end up saying, I don't know why all of a sudden I'm so angry about this. When your body has always known, you just haven't been taught to listen. So the feminine body's response to this new script of Ghayra needs to be written. You're not going to suppress it, you're going to channel it. And for you to do that, you have to hold it first. Not escape it, not bypass it spiritually, not intellectualize it. Just sit with it in your body long enough so that you start to recognize it. You might tell yourself, I am feeling the fire when my dignity is harmed. I'm not here to create harm. I'm here to protect. So in my Empower Muslim Women program, in the coaching, I teach you how to let your body tolerate this level of heat and discomfort. You just stay with it long enough to recognize what it's pointing you towards. You channel it into a boundary, into speech, into peace, into behavior that helps you. A very basic question for you to answer is my Ghayra righteous or reactive? And some of the very basic clarity definitions here is that your righteous Ghayra, you set a clear boundary without disrespecting or creating a toxic dynamic. You feel peaceful and proud afterwards, not justified. You communicate with a calm conviction. Your relationship with yourself, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with others becomes stronger as a result of it because you've been honest in your response. And in the end, you feel more like yourself, not less. When you're dealing with reactive Ghayra, which is ego-led, based in dysregulation, rooted in fear and control of others, you're trying to prove a point instead of protecting a boundary. You will feel drained and ashamed and shaky at the end, even if you've quote-unquote won. You will speak from urgency. You will have a lot of volume and loudness and sarcasm with minimal messaging and impact. The other person will either feel silenced or exploited, but definitely not safe. These are some of the hallmarks of how you're going to channel this energy correctly. Righteous Ghayra makes you more of yourself. Reactive Ghayra makes you someone you don't even recognize, somebody that's far away from your values. So some examples I'm going to give you what it looks like in real life, and you can extend it to your life situations, is if there's a male colleague who's talking over you in a meeting. The righteous Ghayra will notify you that this is not right. You will have a heightened response in your body, but the outcome will be steady. You will be able to speak with confidence and poise. And the outcome's going to be that you didn't shrink, you didn't explode, you're going to stay true to yourself, and the room is going to respect you. But in the same situation, if you snap back with reactive Ghayra, you yell, you demean, you disrespect, there's a possibility that you're going to lose respect for yourself, and the room's going to lose respect for you. You're allowed to display any behavior you want, but you have to understand what fuel it's coming from. Is it reactive Ghayra or righteous Ghayra? Similarly, at home, let's say you find out that your husband's following some model on Instagram. The energy behind righteous Ghayra is going to be completely different than reactive. You're going to be pointing fingers, blaming, saying things like, "Are you seriously that pathetic?" You'll withdraw, you'll cry, and there's going to be a huge raging gap in the relationship. But with righteous Ghayra, you might be able to slow down, point out clearly exactly where your boundary is transgressed, saying, "I don't feel safe. This is not a correct spiritual container that the marriage is supposed to be." You demand from your rights, explaining what your needs are and what expectations you have. How he responds is not your responsibility. If somebody says something jokingly even about your child that you don't like, you can very clearly stand up for your child, look them straight in the eye, and say very calmly, "I know you meant it as a joke, but I don't allow these kinds of jokes at my child's expense." You don't justify your behavior, you don't escalate the situation, you protect with righteous Ghayra, a heightened emotional response, something that can very easily turn into dysregulation if you don't channel it properly. The reactive Ghayra response in the same situation, when somebody said quote-unquote something joking about your child, which is triggered, ego-based, in that case you're going to be attacking them. You're going to feel like your emotions are taking control of you rather than you taking control of your emotions. You respond with anger, or if you don't respond, you'll stew in your own silence. Eventually you'll feel like you haven't protected your child, and the situation gets worse. And while I was creating this podcast and clarifying this concept, I had a very hard time finding the exact translation for this word. What I can come up with is some compound terms, like I've already explained, which is protective jealousy, or righteous indignation, or fierce level of love, honor-based protectiveness, a sacred rage, a fiery reflex. All of these are emotional fuels that ask you to create the right response. There are multiple other examples that you might have already experienced in your life that this level of Ghayra can help you with. Let's say a teacher singles out your child, and they do it in a way that feels culturally ignorant or shaming. You feel that sacred mama bear energy. Yes, you can tell yourself, the teacher probably didn't mean harm. But Ghayra says, my child's dignity matters. It's important for me to stand up. And in this moment, you're also shaping the child's sense of self and how to respond appropriately to these transgressions. You don't act from trigger, you act from presence. Or if your friend repeatedly makes subtle jokes about your religious practice of hijab or any other lifestyle, you might have brushed it off many times. You tried not to take it personally. But if Ghayra keeps rising, then it's telling you that it's something that needs to be addressed. Not from shame, not from blame, but from clarity and confidence. If a colleague takes credit for your idea at work, you could reframe it as Allah will reward me. And yes, inshallah He will. But if your Ghayra keeps showing up, then it's time for you to tell that person that it's your intellectual property and he needs to honor it. And if he doesn't, there are going to be consequences. And you're the one who's going to see those consequences through. Ghayra tells you when it's time to advocate for yourself, not out of arrogance, but out of integrity. You can decide when you think the fire of Ghayra is here to be felt and when it's here to be released. When you think you need to follow through and when you need to express it. I just want you guys to make a conscious choice, not continue to ignore it because nobody ever taught you this dynamic. Because most importantly, unrecognized suppressed Ghayra turns into hate, resentment, and anger, and other ever-consuming emotions. So it benefits you to learn and recognize when it's present, and expand your nervous system enough to be able to hold it, continuing to train yourself if you haven't been able to do so. Unrecognized Ghayra does not disappear. When you suppress it, it festers, it shape-shifts, it comes in front of you in different forms. It becomes bitterness that lingers, a rage that spills out when your kids ask you for one more thing. It shows up as jealousy disguised as concern. And that suppression drains your energy. But Ghayra, the high-intensity emotion, is not the problem. The issue is that most of us were never taught how to recognize it, name it, or to hold it. We were taught to suppress it, spiritualize it, and continue to smile over it. So your nervous system never learned how to tolerate it, how to contain and channel this level of emotional response. So with this podcast, inshallah, this is your invite to start to train your nervous system to hold this charge of ghayra without reacting or retreating. This is your invite to build the capacity, slowly, like building a muscle. Sit with the discomfort. Let your body feel the signal long enough to understand what it's telling you, what it's protecting you against, and then channel it in the appropriate response. So I've told you guys how for some women the instinct is to avoid this completely and to suppress it and to numb it. But for others the opposite is true. They crave it. They seek the charge, the conflict, the emotional high. And ghayra becomes their engine, but not their guide. They might justify it in Islamic terms, but they're creating harm from it. They use it to feel powerful, but it creates unstable relationships and regret. And if that's you, the work isn't to suppress it completely either. It's to channel it, to train your system not to be ruled by this fire, but to walk with it, to light your way, to learn how to direct it towards boundaries, appropriate behavior, aligned action, not towards constant emotional destruction and adrenaline addiction. Whether you've been shrinking from your ghayra or getting a high off of it, the solution is the same. Learning how to hold it long enough to recognize what it's really telling you and steady enough to choose how to respond. This level of nervous system maturity creates your emotional wellness, and that's your soulful intelligence. With that, I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, you are the protector of all that is sacred. Place wisdom in my heart when I feel unregulated. Help me use the emotion of ghayra in a way that pleases you alone. Keep my intentions clean, my responses just, and my actions rooted in mercy and strength. Let my ghayra be a sign of faith, not pride, Ya Rabbul Alameen. Please keep me in your du'as. I will talk to you guys next time. If you're interested in getting coached by me, I'm offering a very affordable opportunity to do that with Wisdom Wednesdays. This is not a course, not a lecture. This is an opportunity for live coaching, real change with Islamic adab and etiquette. You do not need more information. You actually need a space to create change. At $19.99 a month, which is a price of takeout dinner, you as a Muslim woman will create confidence, intimacy, and connection without shame or fear of judgment, because your privacy is my highest priority. So join at www.islamiclifecoachschool.com, resources, Wisdom Wednesdays. I'll see you inside, inshallah.